A very good evening. This is Nationwide on the network service of the NTA. Many thanks for joining us. I am Ifoma Ojinta. President Muhammadu Buhari has cautioned ministers and all heads of departments and agencies to, at all time, conduct themselves in ways that will not undermine the National Assembly as an institution, its leadership and members. The President gave the warning when he received in audience the President of the Senate, Ahmed Lawal, and Speaker, House of Representatives, Femi Gbajabiamila, at the State House. Discussion focused on a range of key issues of national importance, particularly the role of the legislature as a critical component in supporting their common goal and commitment towards improving the lives of the people of Nigeria. Recent events at the National Assembly were highlighted, and the President re-emphasized his utmost respect for the National Assembly, adding that any disrespect to the institution by any member of the executive branch will not be accepted. The President and the leaders of the National Assembly acknowledged that the executive and legislative arm of government are essential partners in the fulfillment of their mutually aligned goal of improving the lives of the Nigerian people. Now, expanding national identification coverage was the focus as the Steering Committee for Nigeria's Digital Identity for Development Ecosystem Project strategizes on achieving targets. Oluseyi Adiagbo reports that the online meeting was presided over by the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Boss Mustapha, who doubles as chairman of the Steering Committee.
Nigeria's population continues to grow exponentially, with an estimated 200 million people already. With this comes the challenge of planning for development, hence the need for government to properly identify the people and plan towards making necessary provisions within available resources. This is a task before the National Identity Management Commission, NIMC, and the Steering Committee for the Nigeria Digital Identity for Development Ecosystem Project is set up to provide direction. Developing strategies may be one of the reasons for this meeting.
We have set up different committees. We have also begun work on the legislative framework, which would eventually culminate by sending a bill to the National Assembly for promulgation into law. To provide for data protection and all other things. And that's what explains the robust nature of this particular committee.
With a strategic roadmap in place, the Steering Committee's assignment has therefore been reduced by half. Next is the implementation stage. Boss Mustafa is calling on Nigerians to play their part by simply visiting the nearest NIMC offices to get registered and secure their national identification numbers. In Abuja, Oluseyi Adiagbo, NTA News.
An 8-man presidential joint board and investigative panel for the audit of the Nigeria Social Insurance Trust Fund has been inaugurated by the Minister of Labour and Employment, Dr. Chris Ngige. Kenneth Nanim reports that the minister was represented by the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry.
The Nigeria Social Insurance Trust Fund was established to provide compensation to insured workers who suffer occupational hazards in their line of duty. This includes employees in the private sector. However, government has observed infractions in the financial regulations and procurement processes in its operations, amongst other violations of the public service rules, as contained in the Accountant General of the Federation's Periodic Check Report 2015 to 2019. To check these irregularities, the Minister of Labour and Employment, represented by the Permanent Secretary, inaugurated an 8-man investigative panel to audit financial operations of the trust fund.
The panel has the following terms of reference: to look into all the infractions of the Procurement Act and financial regulations raised by the Accountant General of the Federation, to look into some issues above raised in the 2018 2019 budget performance utilization in the procurement, particularly training and others, as was raised by the joint committees of the National Assembly.
That we will do our duty justly, we will do it with the fear of God, and we will do it in a manner that nobody will be cheated. I will also solicit for the cooperation of all officials of NSITF.
The Presidential Joint Board and Audit Investigation Panel has 3 weeks to deliver on the national assignment. Kenneth Nanim, NTA News.
The President of the Community Court of Justice, ECOWAS Justice Edward Amoako Ashanti, and the Vice Justice Berry Watara have been re-elected for a second term of 2 years by their peers. The election was conducted by the 5 judges of the court. Justice Ashanti, in his reaction, commended his colleagues for the confidence reposed in them and pledged to use the second term to consolidate on the achievements recorded by improving on the functioning of the court and delivery of its mandate. The 5 judges of the court include Justice Edward Ashanti from Ghana, Berry B. Watara from Cote d'Ivoire, Dupe Atoki from Nigeria, Keikura Bangura from Sierra Leone, and Januaria Moreira Costa from Cape Verde. And our first stop on Nationwide today is Lagos, where Jennifer Igwe has some stories for us. Hello, Jennifer.
Thank you, Ifoma. Now, the effectiveness of emergency management agencies in Lagos was again put to the test this Friday following an early morning accident which resulted to heavy gridlock across the metropolis. Dotun Uguyemi has the report.
It was yet another frustrating day for motorists in Lagos, most of whom have had to spend hours in traffic, with many cancelling their appointments.
It took me 4 hours from Abuja to Costain this morning.
According to a statement on the cause of the incident via Twitter feed by the Chief Press Secretary to the Lagos State Governor, Boyega Akoshle, the gridlock was caused by an accident involving 2 fuel tankers at Kara inwards Ibadan on the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway. The statement further adds that one of the affected tankers carrying diesel has been removed, while efforts to remove the second one requires that a section of the road was cordoned off in order to prevent a secondary accident. This caused a build-up of traffic spilling to adjoining routes.
I don't know what's the problem, but it has been almost an hour, or it could be more than.
Traffic management agencies, security operatives, and emergency management agencies are on the scene managing the incident to reduce the traffic. The traffic backlog has, however, affected motorists plying most highways, including Ikorodu Road, Maryland, and Iyanoboro. In Lagos, Dotun Uguyemi, NTA News.
And to economic matters, for the country to translate its economic viability into wealth, private organizations and associations must be ready to support and generate actions on government initiatives in driving the non-oil sector. The National Institute of Marketing of Nigeria made the call at its 10th annual general meeting, where the 2020 Code for Professional Practice was adopted. Michael Olaleye reports.
The unquenchable desire to create values and sustain the essence of life tends to be the greater motivation for the National Institute of Marketing of Nigeria, especially now that the world is generating new ideas to be relevant in the scheme of things in post-coronavirus pandemic era. And as a signal of embracing the new trend, this 10th annual general meeting adopted a webinar to discuss issues relating to quackery, professional conduct, and national development.
We have now moved a step further in our efforts to ensure that all those practicing marketing illegally obey the law by registering with the Institute as required by law. Our enforcement drive has yielded significant results, with the all-time record of induction of more than 100 fellows at the last Fellows Night and Awards.
Distance seems not to be a barrier in the election of new council and executive members, as the electronic voting system earlier adopted produced a former Executive Director Marketing of the Nigerian Television Authority, Adenike Olufade, as a council member, while the positions of the first and second vice president were also occupied.
And for all that we do, we believe that we'll have a growth in our institute. The next time we come together, there will be all manner of successes recorded.
While the association continues to reflect on the successes recorded, it is recommending to the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, to consider same for future elections and proposed an amendment to its 17-years-old acts. In Lagos, Michael Olale, NTA News.
Time for a break. The news will continue shortly with Ifoma in Abuja. Stay tuned.
Thanks for staying tuned. Water Resources Minister Suleiman Adamu says Nigeria is on the right path towards eradicating open defecation practice in the country by the target 2025. The minister was speaking during an online meeting with state coordinators of Open Defecation Free campaign across the states and the FCT. Musbaut and Wahab reports.
To get Nigeria rid of open defecation.
It is the first online meeting since the outbreak of COVID-19 in Nigeria between the minister and his foot soldiers. Driving this is assessing the campaign so far and the mechanisms set up in cleaning up Nigeria. Despite some challenges, including financing, the report from the state coordinators put in place to fast-track grassroots mobilization is encouraging. Since 2016, 27 local government areas are now confirmed open defecation free, while 10 more are only awaiting validation.
We have cause to celebrate a little bit.
However, 23% of the Nigerian population across 737 LGS still remain in the practice of open defecation. Suleiman Adamu maintains that stakeholders, particularly state governments, have to double up efforts in this regard.
We would have expected by now that all the 36 states and FCT would have been agog, with this WASH action plan and implementing as much as possible. Some are doing a lot of things without necessarily declaring the state of emergency, but making a declaration, a state of emergency declaration, is very, very important, because that will tell people that yes, now the government is really committed, we're concerned, and we're ready to commit. We're still taking baby steps, but I hope we'll make that quantum leap that we need to make.
Mr. President actually launched the Clean Nigeria Use the Toilet program last year. So the states are equally expected to follow suit, launch the same program, have their roadmap in place.
As our nation confronts...
Vice President Yemi Osinbajo, who is the chairman of the National Steering Committee on Open Defecation Free campaign, had earlier encouraged players to support the federal government's purpose-driven moves, which include state of emergency on the WASH sector and Executive Order 9 to ensure the target of 2025 is met. In Abuja, Musbao and Wahab, NTA News.
And to talk more on the Open Defecation Free campaign of the Minister of Environment is our water, sanitation and hygiene correspondent, Musbao and Wahab. Thank you, Musbao, for joining us on Nationwide today.
It's my pleasure.
Now, Musbao, in that report, you highlighted, some developments. Can we really consider this a progress?
Well, when we look at where we're coming from before 2016, where we did not have any single local government that was open defecation free. Mind you, we have some communities that are open defecation free, but when we talk about a all local government being open defecation free, there was none. Not even the Federal Capital Territory that met that criteria. So between now and between then, 2016, when Banliku in Cross River State became the first open defecation free local government area in Nigeria, and then now where we have 27 local government areas now open defecation free, we have 10 local governments still waiting for validation. we can now say we have 37 local government areas that are open defecation free. So you can consider that a bit of progress, but when you consider the fact that we're talking of a country of 774 local government areas, so we still have 737 LGS to be cleaned up. So we can say we still have a lot of work to do in that regard. But what actually happened before 2018 was that there was no actually any policy direction or guideline in this drive, not until the president declared state of emergency on the sector and then launched the national action plan for water, sanitation and hygiene sector. So now we can say if this momentum is sustained and built upon, we can go places.
Okay, now tell us, how are the state governments, responding, and what's more expected of them?
Well, first and foremost, it should be clarified that this job of sanitation is primarily supposed to be the responsibility of state governments and local governments and not the federal government. In case of water, the federal government is supposed to provide the bulk water facility infrastructures and all of that. And when it comes to sanitation, you provide a policy direction. And that is what the federal government has done. But because we failed woefully at the end of Millennium Development Goals in 2015 when it comes to sanitation, the federal government had to come up and say, oh, we can't continue like this. We have to provide the guidance, the leadership role, and now the federal government is playing that role, and that was what brought about the action plan. And then the president said, now, as from then on, the federal government's efforts will be in commensurate with what the state governments are able to put on the table. So if the state governments are ready to work, the federal government is now ready to work with them. So the state governments are now expected to domesticate the action plan, declare state of emergency on the sector, wash sector, and as we speak, 16 states have done that, declare a state of emergency on wash sector, but we still have a lot of them still to do that. So we expect state government to stand up to their responsibility to clean up Nigeria. Otherwise, we'll still end up the way of 2015.
Okay, now with all this being done, any hope of meeting the 2025 targets?
Well, there's hope. It's doable. Because when you consider the country that was the first in open defecation free before Nigeria became the capital of open defecation in the world, India, India had over 500 million people defecating in the open. But the Prime Minister, Narendra Modi, brought up the policy direction and political will. And in 5 years, they've been able to stop those people from open defecation. And here in Nigeria, we're talking of 47 million people. So it's doable since we have the political will now. So we expect the state government to follow suit and legislate against open defecation so that anyone who does that in the open will be sanctioned.
All right, thank you very much, Musbaut and Wahab, our water, sanitation and hygiene correspondent. It's been a pleasure having you here today.
It's my pleasure too, thanks.
And Zulay in Kaduna is standing by with some reports from that axis. It's over to you, Zulay.
And welcome to Kaduna. Many of those who allegedly contributed to fueling the recent communal clashes in Zangon of Kaduna State have been arrested by the police. Commissioner of Police, Kaduna State Command, Umar Muri, disclosed this after a security meeting with stakeholders in the affected areas. Muhammad Umar Rajingi reports.
Property touched, streets deserted, and security personnel keeping vigil over a community under curfew. This is Zangon Kataf in Kaduna State, where conflict broke out a few weeks ago. In a move to restore peace, the state government summoned critical stakeholders to an emergency meeting which lasted for about 4 hours behind closed doors. Commissioner of Police Kaduna State Umar Muri briefed journalists at the end of the meeting.
Steps have been taken to ensure that there's not only peace that is gotten, but lasting peace is gotten in the two local governments affected. That is Zangon Kataf and then Karu local government areas.
Elders from Kajuru local government area are unanimous in their submissions that the people must tolerate each other irrespective of their differences. They urge the public to disregard rumors on social media platforms meant to instigate crisis. In Kaduna, I am Muhammad Umar Ajingi, NTA News.
There is no better time for the Muslim Ummah to be their brother's keeper other than now when the economy is down on account of the coronavirus pandemic. These were words of the Emir of Dutse, Jigawa State, Dr. Nuhu Muhammad Sanusi, as he flags off distribution of more than 280 million naira zakat voluntarily donated by some wealthy individuals. Awal Muhammad Kazauri reports.
Zakat is one of the 5 major pillars of Islam that is an obligatory act of charity which is binding on the well-to-do in the society so as to ensure that part of their wealth is given out to the poor and other category of the society in meeting some of their basic needs. For over 20 years, Dutse Emirate Council takes it upon itself to collect, coordinate and share this zakat to the beneficiaries. Emir of Dutse flags of the 2020 edition, which he described as the largest amount realized in recent years despite the COVID-19 challenges. He admonished the well-to-do individuals to remain steadfast in giving out what is due for the poor as enshrined in the Quran and Sunnah.
Even the collectors are not finding any difficult to collect the zakat. And I think they have also realized, people who are given the zakat and even those who receive it, have realized the benefits of helping each other.
The more than 200 million zakat is expected to benefit over 30,000 people in the 7 local government areas of the Emirates. From Dutse, Awal Muhammad Kazaure, NTA News.
And Nationwide continues with Ifoma in Abuja.
Thank you, Zule. Now, the Chairman House Committee on Health, Tanko Yusuf Sununu, has assured medical health workers in Nigeria that the 9th National Assembly will continue to work with them in ensuring that the health of Nigerians is not jeopardized. Elizabeth Omori reports that the chairman gave the assurance during a visit to the office of the Medical and Health Workers Union of Nigeria in Abuja.
Since the outbreak of COVID-19 in Nigeria, healthcare workers have been in the front line providing care and succor. Unfortunately, many pay the supreme price trying to save lives. In order to see to the welfare of health workers in Nigeria at this critical time when the nation is grappling with the containment of COVID-19, the chairman appealed to the members to engage in constructive dialogue to reduce disharmony instead of embarking on strikes, which often put the lives of patients on the line.
The House of Rep has already constituted a joint committee of which I'm a member to ensure that the benefit of all those that have lost their life during the 2020 pandemic of coronavirus, their family benefit from the benefit they are expecting from government. And to this effect, we have had a meeting initially, and very soon we are going to call for a general public hearing so that the money that has been paid by government, we'll try to attempt to find where it is.
For the union, funding is a major challenge hampering the growth of the health sector.
We are also asking that they should also make budgetary provision to fund our salary adjustments so that the patient and the common Nigerians will benefit from a virile public health system.
The 9th National Assembly has a mandate to collaborate with unions under the Ministry of Health to ensure qualitative healthcare services to Nigerians. In Abuja, Elizabeth Omori, NTA News.
The Nigeria Immigration Service has commenced a nationwide substance abuse test to put its personnel in the right perspective to strengthen the country's migration and border management. Oluseyi Adiabo reports that the exercise was flagged off by the Minister of Interior, Rauf Aregbesola.
It's the flag of substance abuse test exercise for personnel of the Nigeria Immigration Service. executed via video conferencing in adherence to COVID-19 health advisory. The event has officials of the Ministry of Interior, partners, and senior officers of the service joining from across the Federation.
All our officers and men to willingly and freely subject themselves to these tests so as to be sure what we need to do with those who are compromised in any form.
The exercise also received blessings of the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, NDLEA, and 2 international agencies working with the Nigerian Immigration Service to achieve a hitch-free and transparent exercise. For the Controller General of Immigration, Mohamed Babandede, the exercise tagged "The Test Begins With Me" is an effort at building a drug-free nation.
We are paid to protect the Nigerian borders, to protect the Nigerian citizens and give them service. Anybody who is a victim of drug abuse cannot deliver this service effectively. What is even more dangerous is when you give weapon to a person who is a drug addict.
Experts believe the kits can dictate at least 11 banned substances in 5 minutes while guaranteeing confidentiality.
So for the 11 drugs that are being tested, the Controller General is negative for all of them.
In Abuja, Olusheye Adiagbo, NTA News.
Guests on Good Morning Nigeria have observed the processes of evidence gathering for prosecution as a major challenge in the sexual harassment bill that was just passed by the Senate. This is in addition to the other gaps pointed out by the guests on the program. Daniel Aderiye tells us more.
It is the second time that the sexual harassment bill sponsored by Senator Ovie Omoagege will be subjected to public scrutiny. The first was in 2016 during the 8th Assembly, but did not get support from the Academic Staff Union of Universities ASU. Special Advisor to the Deputy President of the Senate on Legislative and Plenary Matters, Ife Duku, threw more light on the merit and jurisdiction of the representation of the bill by the 9th Assembly.
For students in secondary schools and pupils in primary schools, under the criminal code and the penal code at the moment, you cannot plead consent. We must understand that the reason why the framers of the law did that is that they know that the child or a minor who is in primary school or in secondary school is incapable of giving that informed and voluntary consent.
This bill is actually coming in to fill a gap that is there. The only sad thing for me is that it's only limited to tertiary institutions. It would have been lovely for us to have a more broader, legislation that looks at sexual harassment in every, facets of life.
This law is how to achieve 3 things: probably to control, to prevent, and to redress or to address infractions. Those 3 goals will not be achieved unless we get the buy-in of the stakeholders. Let all criticisms that were thrown up in the course of discussion about this bill be revisited.
On her part, Professor of Criminology Hawau Evelyn Yusuf noted that the bill is not only discriminatory in its target, but it will also be difficult to gather evidence for prosecution.
The male lecturers are not the only perpetrators. Just like in the larger society, it's not just the men that are perpetrators. We have female perpetrators. And not until we look at sexual harassment broadly, encompassing even when the perpetrator is also female, then we will not be getting it right.
The guest expressed the hope that the House of Representatives would make recommendations that would address the various gaps identified by all stakeholders. In Abuja, Daniel Aderiye, NTA News.
The federal government has appealed to Rotary International to leverage on its community engagement strategy to assist Nigeria in mitigating the COVID-19 community spread in the country. Information and Culture Minister Lai Mohammed made the appeal when he granted audience to the newly elected governor of Rotary International, District 9125 in Abuja. Anthony Forson reports.
Known globally for its community service and the promotion of peace, the Information and Culture Minister, Lai Mohammed, said Rotary Club is therefore relevant today in the midst of the present raging pandemic in history, pointing out that as at the moment, the COVID-19 pandemic has affected about 14 million people globally with over 592 deaths. Nigeria has a total of 34,854 cases and 796 deaths as at Friday morning. Therefore, it will need every support and assistance. As the federal government, through the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19, has continued to battle the pandemic, but with a conviction that it cannot do it alone.
Specifically, the Rotary can help in setting up sample collection centers across the country to increase the number of tests, which is a crucial step in our trace, test, isolate, and treat strategy. Today, we have increased the number of laboratories for COVID-19 tests from just 2 in January this year to 40. And we are ready to test as many Nigerians as possible in order to curtail the spread of the virus.
On Nigeria's polio-free status, the minister commended Rotary for their great role.
I make this appeal because of Rotary's great role in the recent eradication of polio in Nigeria. Working through Rotary, Nigeria's Polio Plus Committee, this respected organization helped vaccination to reach the remote areas of the country to ensure that every child received the polio vaccine. The result is what we have today, a polio-free Nigeria.
The newly elected governor of Rotary International District 9125, Jumoke Bamiboye, expressed gratitude to the minister and assured that Rotary International District 9125 will energize a robust relationship with the federal government through the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture to promote, among other things, Nigeria's rich culture and heritage. In Abuja, Anthony Forson, NTA News.
And for more reports on Nationwide, let's join Adebola in Ibadan. Hello, Adebola.
Hello, Ifeoma. Welcome to Ibadan. In line with the directive of President Muhammadu Buhari to create special job opportunities for 774,000 youths across the country, the Committee for Implementation of the scheme in Oyo State has been inaugurated. Chairman Extended Special Public Works Oyo State, Okwe Salami, confirmed that the beneficiaries will come from the 33 local government areas of the state.
The determination of federal government to reduce unemployment rate in the country and make youths more comfortable generated the idea of the program. This time, the focus is on maintenance of critical public and social infrastructure at the rural base of the economy.
This committee covers all the stages of life. We have the religious group, the Christian Association of Nigeria. We have the Muslim Association of Nigeria. We have the youth representative on the board. We have the market women on the board. We have the traditional rulers from the 3 geopolitical zones. So with this, it will spread all over. No any sector of the economy will shortchange or any group in the society.
We want to commend the federal government for coming up with this initiative, and we believe that it will affect some significant number of our indigent citizens, particularly in all the 33 local governments.
With 33,000 prospective beneficiaries expected in Oyo State, members of the committee are charged to be fair and just in their selections to allow for the targeted job seekers at the grassroots to emerge. In Ibadan, Shola Wahid, NTA News.
The Federal Court of Appeal sitting in Ibadan has set aside the judgment of the Oyo State High Court, which ordered the state government not to dissolve the elected 33 local government chairmen. Kayode Aladoshu tells us more.
Delivering the judgment, Justice Aruna Samani said the case was based on speculation and that the administration of the elected council chairman have not been disturbed before approaching the court. He notified that the cause of action arise when the right of such person had been violated and no cause of action had arose as at the time the respondent approached the lower court. Justice Samani ruled that the case was premature as the elected local government chairman failed to establish the intention of the state government to remove them from office, which could not be taken for a course of action.
They've delivered the judgment the way they saw it, and that is the position of the law as it stands today. You see, we are bound by the judgment of the court.
What we told the lower court and what we said here was that they do not have a course of action. It's only when you have a course of action, there's a difference between a right of action and a course of action. And that the Court of Appeal just distinguished. So it's a very simple matter, really.
The judgment was delivered under the strict compliance with COVID-19 protocol as the court restricted the number of lawyers in the courtroom. In Ibadan, Kado Ladushu, NTA News.
Nationwide continues with Ifoma in Abuja.
Thank you, Adibola. Now, the Nigerian Navy has inaugurated a 14-room ratings accommodation built by Ministry of Defense as part of efforts towards improving the welfare of the naval personnel in Efonu Delta states. Rear Admiral Saidu Garba, who represented the Chief of Naval Staff, applauded the Minister of Defense for completing the project. This, according to him, will go a long way in solving accommodation problems faced by personnel.
For the provision of such welfare infrastructure will in no little means enhance the operational efficiency of the Nigerian Armed Forces.
Soliciting more support in the areas of modernization, infrastructural development and training facilitation, Rear Admiral Garba says the Navy will continue to cooperate with the Ministry of Defense for national development. The federal government says no efforts will be spared at improving the living standard of the people, especially those in need of assistance. Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development, Sadia Umar Farouk, said this in Zamfara State at the inauguration of distribution of palliative to victims of COVID-19 lockdown and fertilizer to farmers affected by flood. Ilyasu Ali Yakubu reports.
More than 130 trailer loads of grains were delivered in Zamfara State as part of the federal government commitment to alleviate the sufferings of Nigerians. This is out of the 70,000 metric tons of grains approved by the federal government, in addition to the payment of 5,000 naira to more than 130,000 poorest of the poor households in the state from the month of May and June 2020. The distribution of about 30,000 bags of fertilizer has also commenced to about 5,000 farmers affected by conflict in the area.
I was very pleased to have this gesture of the federal government.
It is the concern of the federal government that all disruptions occasioned by banditry are brought to an end, and the people of Zamfara State peacefully settle down to continue with their legitimate activities.
Governor Bello Matowalle of Zamfara State thanked the federal government for the support and promised equal distribution of the items.
We have been making efforts to provide gainful opportunity for our youth. We are aware that most of our youth are forced into acts of enmity for our state security and drug abuse because of poverty and lack of engagement in any activity that will earn them a livelihood.
Director General of NEMA, Air Vice Marshal Muhammadu Muhammad, said the agency will work hand in hand with the State Emergency Management Agency to ensure door-to-door distribution of the items to the beneficiaries. From Gusau in Zamfara State, Ilyasu Ali Yakubu, NTA News.
Troops of Operation Wellstroke have rescued 34 kidnapped victims in Benue State. A statement by the Coordinator, Defense Media Operations, Major General John Enenche, indicates that the victims were rescued in raid operation on the criminals' hideout in Logo local government area of Benue State, sequel to intelligence report on the activities of the kidnappers in the area. General Enenche notes that several arms were recovered from the encounter, while 2 suspected kidnappers were arrested. Meanwhile, residents of Umuawulu in Awka South local government area of Anambra State have decried what they termed seeming neglect of the Harbour Bridge by successive governments. The bridge presently is at the verge of collapse. Daniel Upai reports.
Umuawulu, a community in Awka South local government area of Anambra State, is not just the gateway to other parts of the southeast Nigeria, but strategic in the social and economic advancement of the state, with predominantly farming as their major occupation. Linking Umuawulu and the state capital is the Harbour Bridge, built over 2 decades ago through communal efforts. Over the years, the bridge has come under threat, caving in at one point or the other, while the indigenes put forth palliative. The traditional ruler of the community, who enumerated the importance of the bridge to the people, urged relevant authorities to urgently come to their rescue.
Every year, the bridge has been a very big problem. Last year, there was serious problem. The bridge cut off. There was no link between Umuawulu, Nibu, and the rest of the state. And this year again, it is going to result in that same way. Because when the rainy season comes in full, be rest assured that that bridge will surely give way.
Apart from the Harbour Bridge that is at the verge of collapse, the community is facing other environmental monsters which the traditional ruler has brought to the knowledge of the government. Daniel Okbai, NTA News.
Let's head to Maiduguri for more reports, and Mohammed will be our guide.
Thank you, Ifeoma, and welcome to Maiduguri. 38,000 households have benefited from distribution of food items in the Kwa local government area of Borno State by the federal government, which was complemented by the state government. Mohamed Goni reports.
This was the second time residents and internally displaced persons in the Kwa have benefited from distribution of food and non-food items, including cash support. At this phase of the distribution, a 50 kg bag of sorghum, as well as 3 liters of vegetable oil, were given to each male and female beneficiary, comprising residents and IDPs.
The 33,000 bags of the sorghum were contributed to the state government by the National Emergency Management Agency through the Federal Ministry of Agriculture under its strategic grain reserve, which was distributed to various states by the federal government. And therefore, we must commend the efforts of the federal government under the leadership of President Muhammadu Buhari.
The governor also announced the desire of his administration to reopen the Kwa market to boost economic activities in the area. Chairman of the Palliative Committee, Engineer Bukar Chalba, appreciated support of the federal government and individual donors, but appealed for more support. About 10,000 households have also benefited from palliative distribution in Mapa local government area. In Maiduguri, Ahmed Koni, NTA News.
11 special blind students from Borno State studying at various higher institutions across the nation have benefited from instructional materials in addition to mobility cane aimed at enhancing their studies. Yagum Subuka reports that the government says it is part of its effort to give people with special needs adequate attention.
That was Falmata Mukhtar, an ND1 student of mass communication studying at Tatari Ali Polytechnic, Bauchi State, showcasing her ability to type despite her visual impairment. The Ministry of Higher Education, under the leadership of Professor Issa Hussaini Mafti, has keen interest in people with special needs, hence the purchase of these mobility canes, braille papers and typewriters to be distributed to 11 students with the aim of augmenting their studies. Commissioner for Higher Education, Professor Issa Hussaini Mafti, while encouraging the special blind students to take their studies with all seriousness, assured them that education is their fundamental right and that the ministry is ready to support them throughout their study periods.
Those of you that have not gotten the scholarship, we want your names. You know,
see what we'll do, because we have to support you just like any other person.
Contributing, Permanent Secretary of the Ministry, Muhammad Abuja, appreciated the Commissioner's special interest for the education of people with special needs and urged them to reciprocate the gesture by being good ambassadors of Borno. Principal Special School for the Blind, Hawa Kugiwa, commended efforts of the Commissioner for giving them a sense of belonging. Each of the 11 blind students benefited from a ability cane, typewriter, and a bundle of brain paper, where they appreciated the Commissioner for always being there for them. In Maiduguri, Yabum Subukar, NTA News.
It's time for another break, after which Nationwide continues in Abuja.
New figures coming in from the Nigeria Center for Disease Control, NCDC, shows almost 600 new cases of coronavirus and 9 deaths have been recorded in the country. These 595 new cases brings the total number of confirmed cases in Nigeria to 34,854. Of these new cases, Lagos has 156, Ondo 95, Rivers 53, Abia 43, Oyo 38, Enugu 29, Edo 24. The FCT has 23, Kaduna 20, Akwa Ibom, Osun and Anambra states recorded 17 new cases each. Ogun has 14, Kano 13, Imo 11, Delta 6, Ekiti 5, Gombe 4, Plateau 4, Cross River 2, while Adamawa, Bauchi, Jigawa and Yobe recorded 1 new case each. Lagos tops number of confirmed cases by state in Nigeria with a total of 13,097 cases. Next is the FCT with 2,761 cases, followed by Oyo State with 1,989 cases. There are now 14,292 recovered and discharged COVID-19 patients, with 769 deaths on record so far. In the meantime, the federal government has given school owners in the country up to 29th July 2020 to meet specific guidelines towards the reopening of schools at a date to be announced in due course. A statement by the Minister of State Education, Chukwuemeka Nwajuba, having consulted widely, the ministry developed and circulated guidelines for the reopening of schools, and school owners are to comply with all safety protocols. Nwajuba said schools are to undertake self-assessment and send feedback to state ministries of education not later than 29th July 2020. Consultations with relevant stakeholders will be held to review the situation and decide on a specific date for reopening, and if a decision is reached in reopening, a mechanism to assess and monitor compliance shall be put in place. On WAEC, the minister said the ministry met with the examination body last Monday and agreed to further consult with 4 other countries on a new examination date. Parents are assured of the safety of students and teachers, as the ministry is assiduously working towards speedy reopening of schools for exit classes to take external examination. President Muhammadu Buhari has expressed delight at the news of appointment of Professor Charles Ebu from Anambra State as Vice-Chancellor of Leeds Trinity University, United Kingdom. President Buhari felicitates with the academia, who is the first black person appointed helmsman of a ranked university in the UK, urging him to continue to proudly hold the flag of Nigeria high in all his endeavors in the elevated position. The president notes Professor Ebu, a foremost quantity surveyor with 12 books and over 350 publications to his credit, is a worthy example of an industrious Nigerian whom the younger generation should adopt as a role model. President Buhari expresses the confidence that he will build on the strong foundations laid by his predecessor at the university, where he is also an alumnus. And that concludes Nationwide for today. We thank you for watching. Do stay safe. I am Ifoma Ojinta.